In this video I'm going to go through how we add a new part to a particular document in Onshape and how we can then go about combining those two parts in an assembly. So I'm going to continue with this part that we've been drawing in the previous videos with the two rebate joints and the hole in the center of it. And what we're going to do is we're going to create just a very basic part that we can attach on either end to this rebate joint. And I'm also going to show you how we can make a dowel that we could put into this hole in the center of it. So down the bottom of our document in Onshape, we've got our part studio, which is what we've been working on, and we've got our assembly, which is where we assemble parts. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rename this part studio. I'm going to call this shape our base. So if we right click on the part studio, we get a whole menu come up. We've got the option to delete it, open in a new tab, see its properties, show code. We can duplicate it. So if we wanted to make multiple copies of this same piece, we could select duplicate and it'll make an exact copy of that same piece right next to it. We can also copy the piece. There's all sorts of options here. I'm going to rename it and I'm just going to call it base. So in any project that you were doing as you're working on your parts, it's really good practice to name each individual part that you're working on, because as you get lots and lots of parts running along this bottom task section, it can be a bit hard to tell what's what without hovering over them. It's much easier if they're labeled, you know, I've got to go back and edit the base. I'll just click on the base. So I'm going to make that next part that we were talking about just a very basic rectangular piece that we can attach on the end. So I'm going to insert a new tab and I need a new part studio. Before I start work on it, I'm going to rename it quickly. I'm just going to call it end. It's going to be an end piece. Now just to recap from this base, it's 140 wide along this line, okay, and this rebate was in 19 millimeters and it was 9.5 millimeters deep. Okay, if for some reason you couldn't remember the measurements that you've used for a particular part, something you can do is down in the right hand corner here, we've got our show measure details tool. If we click on that, we get this little pop-up window come up. If we select any line within our particular part studio here, it will come up with the details about that line. So if I click this one, you can see length 300 millimeters. If I then click away and click on a different line, it'll give me a different measurement for that particular line. So I can see my end ones are still 140. I can see this little line here is my 19 that I was talking about, and the depth of my rebate, which is this line here, is my 9.5. So if you wanted to check those before you go on to the next end drawing that we're going to draw to fit there, you can use that measure tool. To get out of it, we just hit this cross button. So I'm going to go into the end. Now it's really important when we're drawing parts that are going to go together that we try and draw them in the correct orientation that we want them. So if I'm going to put the end piece right here standing upright, okay, I'm probably going to want to start by drawing that exact rectangle that you can see highlighted there, and then I can extrude it upwards. So similar to what I did with this piece, when I drew it initially, I started from the top view and drew the rectangle that I wanted. I'm going to draw this rectangle. So I need to know the measurements of it. So I know that this line, we just checked there, is 140, and this line in here is 19. So I'm going to need to draw a 140 by 19 rectangle in my next one. So to do that, like I have in the past, I'm going to select my sketch tool and I'm going to select the plane that I'm drawing in. So I'm going to select this top plane, use my center point rectangle, or R on the keyboard, start from the center, and I'm going to start drawing that rectangle. Remember, the measurements don't matter. We're just going to draw a rectangle, and now we're going to modify its size. So this first box, we want that to be 19, and then the total width of our piece, which was 140. Remember, we type in the measurements, we press enter. If for some reason we need to modify those measurements, we can get out of our rectangle tool by pressing escape. We could go back in, we can double click on either of them and modify them. But if we're happy with that size, accept our sketch, and now it's time to extrude it. So Shift E, or click on the extrude tool next to our sketch one, click on this rectangle, and I'm just going to make this the same length as the other piece is. I'm going to make it 300, and I'm going to accept it. Now I can't see that whole piece, so I'm going to zoom out a bit by scrolling backwards on my mouse. I can now see that full piece. Okay, so we're going to call that completed. We now need to draw a dowel that's going to fit inside that center hole. So again, I'm going to add a new part studio by clicking the Insert tab down the bottom left hand corner. Click on Create Part Studio. It'll give me a new part studio. I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to call this one Dowel. This time, instead of starting the sketch with a rectangle, we're going to need to start it with a circle. So again, I'm going to sketch from my top view, because that's where I'm going to need my circle. Start from the center, draw my circle out. Doesn't matter how big it is at this point, because we're going to modify the size when this box is highlighted white. Our hole was 10 millimeters in diameter, so we're going to make our dowel 10 millimeters in diameter, and we're going to accept it. And then we need to extrude that circle to make it into a cylinder or a dowel. Now I'm just going to make it a bit bigger than what our 19mm thick piece is, so 25 is fine. I'm just going to leave it at that. So I've now got 3 pieces along my bar on the bottom here. I've got our original base, the end piece, and our dowel. Okay, now we're going to go through how to assemble them. So to start with, we're going to go into our assembly, and we can see it's completely blank. Now in the assembly tab, you'll notice along the top all of the tools are completely different. We don't do any drawing directly in the assembly tab. It's just for putting our projects together. Alright, so to do that, we need to start bringing our pieces in. So we're going to start by inserting the parts that we need for our assembly. So I'm going to click on our Insert tab up here in the top left hand corner. It's going to give us a whole heap of options to insert things. It's always going to start off on our part studios, our individual parts. Okay, on more complex projects, you could put small assemblies together with a few parts, and you could have multiple assemblies. So say for example you're doing a big cabinet, you could assemble the components that make up a door separately, you could assemble the carcass separately, you could assemble a drawer separately, and then you could do one big final assembly where you select a range of assemblies and put them together all in one. It just means that you're not trying to put everything together and make it all reliant on the one assembly. So in this instance, we're going to select our base because that's the bit we want to start with. Where we put it at this stage isn't a big deal. I'm just going to click to put it down. I'm then going to select my dowel. I'm going to click to put that somewhere and give it a decent enough gap away from my other piece. Alright, and same with our end piece. Now if you need to zoom out, you can zoom out while you're doing this, just don't click. If you don't put them close enough together or they're too far apart, it's not a big deal. You can always hover back over them, click and hold, and you can drag them to move them out of each other's way. Alright, worst case scenario, and you've put them right on top of each other and you can't find that piece again, you can always click on a piece and press delete, or highlight the piece and press delete, as long as you are no longer in the insert menu. Sorry people, I'll start this video again.